Here we go. Hello, hello. Yes, we like to rock out as our introduction to Agitation August.
That was great. That was great.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. My name is Margaret Pinard. I'm a historical fiction author and an eclectic reader. And welcome to the channel. You're on Booktube. We are talking today with Pat from Book Chat with Pat. Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And the event, the reason for all these wonderful guests on the channel this month is Agitation August. So I'm pausing my regular content. I'm holding up all the books that I'm reading. So we're going to have a big wrap up in September.
Wow.
But this month, it's all about folks who are bringing their own chosen books. And we're going to talk about what shook them up. So I asked people to come on and talk about what is a book that shook you up, that really sort of transformed how you look at the world and maybe how you act and present yourself to others in the world. So, Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Booktube channel and what you normally love to read and talk about there?
Sure. So my channel is Book Chat with Pat, and I've been here for about 18 months, so just a year and a half. I talk about a lot of different things. I think as a relatively new booktuber, I've been, very excited about a lot of the opportunities and events. I was an English teacher for almost 40 years, so I bring that to the channel. I certainly talk about classics. I talk about books I love to teach. I talk about poetry at least once a week. But I've been, just sort of dabbling in all of these reading events that have been, going on and overwhelming myself, I think. But but having a lot of fun and, getting to know a lot of people through some of these events. So I think I'm a pretty eclectic reader. I think I read I read widely, and I've loved the community aspect of reading here. So
Awesome.
That's a little bit about what happens on my channel.
Yeah.
And, there are things I do regularly. I mean, I do Poetry Thursday every Thursday, so.
And you're a regular guest on some other channels, I think, or maybe it's just for the readathons that I've seen, but I've definitely heard others say, you're the English teacher we wish we had in some cases. So yeah, no shade to my English teachers, because I had some good ones as well. But
right.
For what is it? What's the book we were talking about on another live that was people, you were saying that it hurt your heart when people said they didn't like it.
Oh, there are several. I just said it to somebody this morning. It could have been The Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, Catcher in the Rye, that one.
Somebody just did a video about The Great Gatsby, and I had to hold myself back because I didn't have time to really get into it. But that's one that, breaks my heart a little. I mean, there are many, but I just said it to somebody today who kind of dissed his English teachers or what he had to read in high school. And I said, you just broke my heart a little.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
There were some good choices. There were some bad choices. I think you can't get everyone. You're trying to get everyone in the classroom.
Absolutely.
You can't get everyone with every book. That's totally true.
I mean, there were books that I had to teach that weren't my favorites either. And that's always a task, when you don't love something, to make it palatable to others.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's hard. And I don't think I always did that well, but I tried.
Yeah. So what you chose for this one, for Agitation August, is How We Learn to Be Brave. Mariann Edgar Budde?
Buddy, she's called.
Buddy. Okay, so Buddy. It's a fun way to say it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you came to this book and why you chose it for Agitation August.
Okay. Well, she actually was on my radar for a while, but I had not read this book. But then she did the prayer service after the inauguration this year. And I think after she did that, where she basically urged the new administration to show mercy to the many, many populations that were living in fear she became kind of a national, a household word again. Everybody was sort of talking about her. And so I started looking into her again. And I mean, this is a book that she wrote well before any of that. This book was written in 2023. And you couldn't get this book right after the inauguration. It was sold out everywhere. You couldn't get it. Yeah. But that's what put her back on my radar again. I mean, she was on my radar back in 2020 because of some things that she stood up for very courageously. And then I kind of, I wasn't really thinking about her. And then after that prayer service, she kind of, I think, was on a lot of people's minds again. And she was horribly attacked and targeted after that. And, but that's what got me to read the book.
So you read it this year then, right?
Yeah.
After the second inauguration.
Correct.
Buffle, yeah. if you will. Yeah. Okay. All right. So excellent choice. This is one of the ones I read, and I was telling you before, for the audience who may not know, I am not a religious person, and I have sort of a resistance to the religious approach to things, even if overall it's a positive effect. And so I had to push through a little bit because there's a lot of examples that she brings that are from religious texts and from religious traditions. So originally I was like, oh, am I really going to read this? And then I pushed through, and it was really interesting. And she has a lot of social justice lessons. So I'm going to take us through some of the questions and why this would be meaningful for you to read at home, perhaps. So one of the frames that Budde brings to an analysis of decision-making, how we learn to be brave, she's talking about brave decisions, is the process of preparation for a decision, the deciding moment, and then alignment with that decision, which I thought was really interesting. So do you see any of your decisive moments falling into that framework, or is it sort of something that doesn't conform to your own experiences?
I think it does. I mean, I sort of heard her, that paradigm that she sets up was very familiar. She's kind of building on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. That's really what she's basing this on, this idea that, you have this sort of precipitating event in your life, and then you hear this call almost, to go out and do something differently from the way you've been doing it, or something different from what you've been doing. And the protagonist either accepts the quest or does not in some cases. So from a literary point of view, that certainly resonated with me and sounded kind of familiar. But it also reminded me of a couple key things in my life where I think I did, I don't know, have that precipitating event, and then had to decide, am I going to make this change in my life? Am I going to stand up for this cause? And I do have some examples that, that do fit that. So it did, I think she talks about times when we're summoned to move beyond our borders, the areas where we're comfortable. Yeah. And one that came to mind was a major life change that I made, I guess it started when I was 30, but it was a 10-year process. So that seemed to fit exactly with what she was talking about. It's not like you have this precipitating event and then go out and do this courageous thing, and then the next day you go on to the rest of your life.
Right. It's not like a step function. You don't just like up and then plateau and then up. It's like a whole cycle. Yeah.
Right. So for me, that was, as I mentioned, I was a teacher. I was a high school English teacher for 40 years. But in the middle of my career, I also made a career change, and I added a career to my career. And it was something that took tremendous courage. But also persistence, because it took me 10 years. And I entered into a psychoanalytic institute, and I started studying psychoanalysis, first with the idea that this was going to help me as a teacher, that this was going to help me to deal with resistance in colleagues, and in students.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
I ended up, when I decided, all right, I'm not just going to dabble here. I'm not just taking these little classes here and there, but rather I really want to study this stuff. And I matriculated in the program and spent the next 10 years of my life. While I was teaching full-time, I was going to school really full-time as well. And, basically working 7 days a week. But it was a real, veering off into truly uncharted territory. I mean, I was an English major, I was not a psych major. And this required, academic study. It required internships in state mental hospitals where I was working with, the most disabled people that you can imagine. Internships at low-fee mental health clinics where we were serving the underserved. So it was huge. It was just a gigantic, change in my life. And I think that kind of fits what she's talking about,
Okay. Yeah. I felt like with her word alignment, it was doing a lot of heavy lifting, to use the modern phrase, because I think, okay, preparation, you're pondering an idea, you're sort of making space, you're trying out to see if it fits. And then you have that decisive moment where you go, are you going for it or are you staying?
Yeah.
And the alignment, as she describes it, is kind of like, and everything that changes because you made that decision afterwards and how you have to confront it. And it's like, oh, that's that's a lot,
That's a lot. Yeah.
I
mean, because when I was thinking about this, I was thinking like, I don't think I'm a very courageous person. I don't think I've done a lot of things that, certainly not the kinds of things she's done, and then, when I've looked back and I thought about some of these key moments in my life, I guess, they would be what she would call, heeding the call or, stepping up to the plate. She uses a lot of baseball metaphors.
She's got several different categories of decisive moments, which she illustrates. I just want to say hello to some of the folks in the chat. Mojo is here. Poland. Lynn is here. Hello.
Hello.
Gibson. Welcome, everybody. Ben here. Again, non-notify. Yeah, we're familiar. Diane is here. Good afternoon. Jim is here. Fellow English teacher, but English as a foreign language. A different approach over there in Georgia.
Right.
And Anne says she came to my attention when she was at St. John's Church, when she stood up for the church. And she does go over that decisive moment because I think it's the one she's most known for. So she definitely tells us.
That was the precipitating event that actually got her to write this book. I mean, she frames the whole book around that incident, which was, I think that was the first time I learned about her. That was the first time I heard about her. Right. And then, certainly with the inauguration, she came back, onto my radar again. So.
Yeah. So Ven and I were having a little side conversation on one of the other live streams about, faith and internal changes and what is it that we're talking about here. And one of the questions I came up with was the reframe that Budde does from I'm being persecuted. Like the internal mindset is like, there's this thing that keeps happening and it feels like persecution. And the deciding moment, changing that into I'm engaged with this issue and I'm going to stand up to something. There's something that changes inside. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about like, is that a mindset? Is that an expansion? Is that alignment? Is that like a soul change? What do you feel that, what's the clip? What's changing there?
What makes it change?
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that happens instantaneously. I don't think it's like an aha moment. At least I haven't experienced that. I do think that sometimes these moments that make us feel persecuted, that's a strong word, but that is the word she uses. I think those moments I can get lost in those. I can do a real head trip, to myself with moments like that. And I do think it's a reframing. I think it's a deciding to look at something differently. Otherwise, I'm going to be eaten alive by this thing. It's almost like
with self-preservation, maybe like
yeah.
an instinct to self-preserve by, reframing. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, because I was thinking, like when you had, asked me the first question about moments in my life, I mean, the decision to study psychoanalysis, that happened a long time ago, but I've had a lot of these kind of moments since I've had the channel going, and I've had, some really bad experiences where I wouldn't want to say I've been persecuted, but I have been treated very, very unkindly in response to some of my videos. Usually when I'm talking about a banned book, an LGBTQ writer, I've had, like ugly comments written in my comment section. And I have a really, really thin skin, and it's devastating every time it happens. And yet I keep doing it. I keep talking about these writers, and I keep talking about these banned books. And but I had to change the way I thought about, these attacks that I am experiencing, so that I can keep doing this. Otherwise, I'm not going to be what am I going to be talking about on my channel?
Right. If you let other people's comments make your world smaller, it's going to get less and less and less until you're not able to really do what you want with the channel. So you have to think, okay, why am I here?
Right.
But it gives a lot of great examples of, I don't know if I'd call them social justice warriors. That's sort of a criticized term these days, but people in history who have really demonstrated courage in the public realm. Were there any of that jumped out that had special personal significance to you? Because I have one.
You do have one? Okay. All right. You want to tell me yours first, or?
Sure. So she brings up Howard Thurman. Did I get that right? Yes. And I have a quote of his, which became like a darling of, I think, Etsy and, print makers. But it's the one about, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And I knew nothing about him except that quote, and it just connected, because I feel like often I'm lost in terms of what is the most effective way to go, what is the most important issue to pursue and do with my life. And then to have this be like, it's what makes you come alive, because the world needs people who have been activated and are acting on joy. And I was just like, oh, permission. Yes.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
Learn a little bit more and more and more about him, and then have him here and be like, wow, okay, he's like a superstar. That was really cool to see.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, she does. She has a lot of really, really wonderful examples. And many, some are in the religious realm, but most are just, people who were fighters for social justice. I liked her example. She does quite a bit about Jonathan Daniels, who was involved in the civil rights. I mean, he was a seminarian, and he was involved in the civil rights movement, providing transportation to the Selma March, helping with voter registration, just a guy out there on the front lines, and he got killed. I mean, he actually got, he put himself in front of a young person, and he got shot. I think it was at a teenage-led protest. I thought that was a really, really moving example. And, I don't know that I could throw myself in front of somebody and, take the bullet. I thought that was a really powerful example. I think she's an amazing example. I mean, she doesn't blow her own horn very much, but she is, I mean, I read her Substack now, and, she writes, well, I get what she writes every week, but she is being persecuted horribly. And she continues to just stand up for righteous causes. And right now she's just joined a group of clergy and other civic leaders in Washington, D.C., to stand up for Washington, D.C., basically, that.
Did she throw a sandwich at somebody?
No, I don't think she threw a sandwich. I don't think
I
read that she did that, but
yeah,
but that a sandwich was thrown.
DC,
but
man. Ugh.
Like a lot of I'm sort of in the same place you are with a lot of the religious aspect of, she's a bishop. She's, she's been part of the clergy for a long time. One of her scripture examples that she talks about near the end of the book that has always resonated with me is the figure of Peter, who, is like he's elevated to this position of leadership. He's going to lead the church. He's going to, be the church after the crucifixion. And he's a disappointment from day one. He does everything wrong. And yet, he's still, he's human. He's like the human face of I guess, the church, I would say.
And that was one of the most powerful examples, I think. So there's the call that's more like the hero's journey. There's the call to stay, which is like sticking it out when that's the harder way.
Yeah.
To the plate, as you mentioned. And then I think the last one is the letdown. So the example of like getting elevated to like, you're the first in the church to like, oh, you don't get this at all, Peter. I'm like, oh yeah, there's definitely a backlash and disappointment. Self and otherwise.
I was very, very moved by the way she wrote about him. And I think he's useful to people, to think of, you were the favored son and you blew it, on every chance. You had chance after chance and you said the wrong thing. But he's also the example of, forgiveness. He gets forgiven and he goes on and he does become the leader, of the church. I thought that she did a nice job, too, in talking about Eleanor Roosevelt. I found that to be a really moving example of somebody who decided to stay. She was the example of someone who didn't break away or break out. And yet, who knows what humiliations she suffered or, what she suffered, but she continued, at least in this version, she was a partner, to Roosevelt and she did stand up for social justice causes and she did a lot of good that she probably couldn't have done if she had walked away, So
who knows what the U.S. would look like today if she had walked away? Her stay affected the I think the path of the whole United States and the war and everything.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy.
So I found her to be a really moving example, an inspirational one. I haven't studied her in any kind of detail, but that was very moving, I thought. She had a lot. There was one other religious figure she talked about, Gregory Boyle, who's a Jesuit priest, but she talked, so she talked about him, starting what I don't know if it still is, but it was the largest gang intervention organization out there. So I've read a lot about him, and I find him to be a pretty inspirational leader as well. But those were the ones that really spoke to me, I thought.
Nice. So I'm just going to interject here to say, yes, questions, if you have, pop them in, please. I've got a poll question at the top, which I think Elaine is the only one to have answered. So thank you. Elaine is here.
Hi, Elaine.
Mariann's also here. Hello. We've got Joe saying hello and Gareth. Nice
to
meet everybody. And I need to study more about Eleanor Roosevelt. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. Interesting. The links to the calendar, if you're curious who else has already gone and been on the channel and is coming up in the next couple of weeks, are in the chat, as well as bingo cards are in the description. So this is a perfect time. If you're wanting to play the bingo cards, Pat's word is
enigmatic.
There we go. And is it the sound or is it the meaning or what is
I
it
think
about?
both. I do like the meaning of it, but I like the sound of the word too.
Yeah, I love playing with words. So enigmatic for anyone playing bingo, and the links to the Instagram where you can download one of any 3 cards are down below in the description. Let's see. I wanted to shout out the fact that she says, or she refers to, and I'm just going to say the straight quote, I wish this hadn't come up in my lifetime, right? The curse of living in interesting times.
Yeah.
And she references, so do all who live in such times, but that is not for them to decide. So shout out Lord of the Rings nerds. You will appreciate that reference.
Yeah.
Felt that right away. Let's see. There's another, a lyric that came up. So in the category about accepting, so there's go, there's stay, and there's accept. And that was another really hard one for me to read about, because one of the decisive moments is accepting something that you don't want, right? It's just something that is a fact of life and that you have to accept before you can get past it or really do anything else.
Right.
And chronic illness is a big one of these for Budde, but also for some of the examples that she talks about.
Yes.
This made me think of a lyric from Aurora. So Aurora is a popular Icelandic singer, and I've got a few of her albums on my phone to exercise to, because they're really like pump you up.
Wow.
And the surround your weakness with strength. She's got a song that says something like, soft hearts need protection, and it just sort of like echoes this soft hearts need protection. I thought that's a perfect way to say it, because the way you can best relate to people, I think, is with a soft heart, but you need to guard it against all of the people who are not looking to connect. And I thought that was a really hard one to accept.
Yeah.
Anything you related to in that chapter that pops
very, very powerful. And I was thinking about that in terms of a couple of the examples from my own life that I was thinking of. I talked a little bit before about, kind of deciding to stay with this channel. I did delete it at one point and brought it back again. But that idea of just sort of needing to surround myself with people who get it, who have a thicker skin than I do, because I don't, and I don't at this point in my life. I don't think that's going to change, but I've drawn real help and strength from this community in times when I have really, really felt targeted, and in a really scary way. People can say really ugly, awful things in this venue. So
that was a application I hadn't even thought of. So her metaphor is that, like, if you have a bad back, for example, you have back pain, Elaine will know of what she is speaking.
Yeah.
And, you have that weakness that you have to accept and just sort of figure out how to go about your life with it.
Yeah.
Then you have to strengthen all the other areas, right? Get up and do the stretches, or get up and do like
build that core.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that metaphor was really helpful. And then you take it and say, yes, so I have this thing that I'm doing and I need people around me who are sources of strength, which is really interesting. I love that.
Yeah. But it's really true. I saw Gareth here in the chat a little bit ago. He has been one who has been a champion for me, and and he comes to my rescue. Not that I need to be rescued. I'm a tough cookie, but he has responded to some of these people who have said really outrageous things. So that's just a little example, but in a larger sense, that I have friends who have really convinced me that I am doing a good thing here, and that I don't need to delete the channel every time somebody says something really racist or ugly or unkind. But I have been amazed at some of the things that people will stand up and will have no qualms about saying. The example though too of sometimes things that you just can't you can't change, and she's talking about, physical things. But I was thinking of an example in my life where that kind of fit that chapter. I worked in a public school system for most of my 40 years. And, so we had a teachers union, and we had an administration one year that went after all of the supplemental workers in the district, and they threw them out of our union. So we're talking about all the custodians, all of the cafeteria workers, all of the teachers' aides, everybody who wasn't a teacher. And I stood up to the Board of Ed and to the superintendent, and I spoke on behalf of all of these people, with real personal stories about, working with these people. And these were the lowest paid people in the district. I mean, these are not people that were costing the district a fortune, but the district didn't want to pay their benefits anymore. So they threw them out of the union. And it was a really traumatic time in the life of the school system, and we lost, we didn't win, and it was horrible. I mean, it was a really, really dark day. I mean, people were threatening to quit over it, but they couldn't, I mean, you can't just quit your job, but that was something that took us years, I think, to recover from.
And something that I'm still working on is accepting losses like that. So if you've been in a fight or you've been part of a movement and there is a loss, we have plenty of examples, but like, even if it's something about your channel where like you try for a thing and then are disappointed with the results, the acceptance of the loss sort of goes through a, grieving process, however abbreviated it might be.
Right.
But like there's an analysis period and there's like a letting it go period. And I have certain things that I try to do in my own life, like to say, okay, so I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to get outside of the house, even though it's 85 degrees. Like I need to change the scene. I need to do these several things to sort of process and get into a different headspace because I need to accept it and move on. And like those help bring strength back to like the mission and why I do it and all that kind of stuff. But
exactly. I mean, has that happened to you on the channel? I mean, you do so many things that are, putting yourself out there and putting, issues out there that some might find controversial. I mean, does that happen to you where people troll you or?
No, because I'm not big enough.
But I'm not either. I mean,
any of them, apparently.
What's that?
I haven't caught the attention of any of them, and I'm going to keep knocking wood every time I say that because I don't want that kind of attention either. I want to get to the people who, are on the fence or in the camp so that we can share resources, so that we can boost the signal, so that we can act together. Yeah. And, even if it's a tiny, tiny little voice,
Right.
So far it hasn't gotten big enough to get a negative attention, which I don't know how I would deal with. So.
Yeah. I mean, the first time that it happened to me, it was my first weekend on Booktube. I mean, I think I had like 30 subscribers, but every single time I talk about a banned book or an LGBTQ plus author or, observing the month of June, I'll either get, some ugly comments or I'll lose a whole bunch of subscribers. Just weird stuff that makes you feel, I don't know. I mean, I feel attacked. I feel, I feel challenged by that. But the first time, which was brutal, I mean, there were like person after person just writing these nasty things. I'm like, this is like the second video I've ever made. It's like, who am I, that I attracted this kind of hate. I mean, it was hate.
Yeah. Have you ever drawn strength from the Elizabeth Bennet quote about every time you come to intimidate me, my courage grows higher? I think that's Pride and Prejudice.
No, I haven't. I should. I
mean, it might work for some, not for everyone. I'm just like putting it out there in case that helps.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's I think there are other people, with channels who talk about much more controversial things than I do. I don't think I'm very controversial. And they engage with people. They like the back and forth, but, I can't do it. I don't have I just don't. It's sort of like I don't know if I'm too old for this venue, or,
It's
I'm
battery
just,
life for an emotional battle. I feel like I definitely feel like that's a different scale of fighting. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Hello to Julie. Hello
Oh, yes. Hi, Julie.
to Eloise. Yeah. Soft Hearts. Aurora. Really good musician. Love listening to
Yeah,
her.
cool. I like that.
Is here. Hello. I'm glad to hear Elaine has not had the back pain. So that's good. That's good.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's
Gareth
great.
says, we'll always be there for you.
Aw, thank you, Gareth. He really does. He like runs in and he'll write a response to somebody, who's the audacity of people. Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah. Anne says, I have to separate myself from hateful people. My peace is very important. Yeah. That's valid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, MJ was really instrumental in helping me to figure out how to manage that on here. I mean, I knew nothing about this whole venue. I didn't know that I could delete somebody's comment. I didn't know I could block somebody. I didn't know.
Hide user from channel. That's the boss.
So what happens if you hide somebody from the channel? They're still there, but you don't see what they're saying,
and no one else does either. So they just get to talk into a void.
They're just talking into a void.
I don't know if it counts as engagement for the channel stats, but if it does,
I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
Sauce for the goose.
Right.
Elaine says, in Canada, we have separate unions for teachers, custodians, EAs, and admin assistants. So,
wow. We were all in one, and now we're not. They threw everybody out.
Well, teachers' unions have been devalued over, I don't know if Dad's listening, but he was a teacher for 40, 50 years. And same history. So,
yep.
And says individualism has been elevated to godlike status. Agree. It's okay to need people in community. Agree.
Yes.
That's really the humane and humanity. Yes, that's such a good quote. I like that. I'm going to star that. I never come back to these, but I'm going to star that in StreamYard. I love it. Eva's here. Hello. Yeah, that's the energy we want. The fighting spirit. Yep.
Yeah.
Anne says hateful people are secret keyboard warriors. They wouldn't probably do it to your face. Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that's very true. But it's frightening. It's frightening. The first time, Greg, the first time it ever happened, it really, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I actually was having palpitations. It really was the first weekend I had my channel, but it's happened a lot. I mean, I did what I thought was like a really well-researched video on Alice Walker. And that brought out someone who professed to be a minister. And he went up one side of me and down the other and wrote really, really ugly things that it took my breath away, Well,
that's not going to help your contact with religion issue.
Right. It's like, yeah, wow. Do you talk like that from the pulpit?
Right. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Gara says, if you say an opinion on YouTube, there's always a risk of offending and upsetting, but it's about how much you want to say it. Yes, how important to you it is. So you stand up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sauce for the goose. It's an expression that doesn't really fit. That's why I didn't say sauce for the gander, but sprinkling those little things in there just for fun. He says, I love that. Get those pathetic loud mouths out of there. Yeah, for the hide user from channel.
Yeah, hide user. Yep.
If you're driven politically, you will bounce back from a contrary keyboard warrior. I hope so. Knock on wood. I hope that's my response.
Yeah.
For Jim, the most negative comments I get on my channel are that I don't get Master and Margarita. I realize that I'm in a privileged position of being white and male. So you say you don't get the book, and then people respond because they don't like the book and they don't like that you don't like it also? Or I'm not sure which way this is going. Because if you're saying it's because you're in a privileged position, that says to me that maybe the people who don't like that you're not condemning it. No, Master and Margarita is not Lolita. So what am I thinking about? It's like a devil character.
I haven't read Master and Margarita. Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics is always trying to get me to buddy read it with him, and
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
Yeah.
So Jim will have to fill us in more on that. I'm not sure what they're.
If from what he understands, because if he's saying he doesn't get it, then maybe we need to get another source. But yeah,
he doesn't get it, or people are telling him he. I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah. Elucidate, please, Jim. Okay, so I've got a couple more questions, but feel free to write questions into the chat or respond to the poll questions because we'll cover that at the end. Let's see. Oh, okay, this was a really good one. So in the Step Up chapter, Budde talks about learning how to stand and kneel at the same time. And so for what that means to me is like holding true to convictions while receiving anger from someone with compassion and respect. And I'm just like, how? To me, I'm listening to this and I'm listening to the sentence and I go, okay, you're holding true to your conviction of what is right while someone is projecting anger at you and you're receiving it with compassion and respect. Yeah. And when I hear all those different nouns, my face makes all these different emotions. Like, how am I supposed to do all that?
I know. The example that comes to mind for that in this book from her life was, and I don't know if this is where she talked about it, but when she talked about going back to, I guess, it was all in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, when she, I guess, appeared again. It was after she made her statement about Trump standing in front of the church with the Bible upside down. Right. It was after that, but then she showed up at one of the protests, and she was trying to speak, and people were telling her to sit down and telling her to shut up, and they were other protesters. And one of the young men protesters said, "We've been out here for days, and nobody's paying any attention. No one's listening to us. And you show up, and all of a sudden the press is here and the TV is here and all the cameras are on you." And, and he was mad at her. And she was able to hear that. She was able to accept that sort of and say, he was right. He was right. She was right to be standing up and saying what she was saying. And he was right too. Like, why are you more important than us? Why isn't anybody listening to us? And she was able to hear that. That, I think, was like maybe an example of that.
Yeah. The other one where I highlighted the explanation of it was from Bishop Curry. So that's, I think, another bishop who is a Black man and was responding to a different example, but like really laid it out in the way that I was able to process well. So I liked his words, and I think she quotes from his book. That's why. Yeah. It was easier to there.
Well, there were a couple times where she made a really bad decision, and the people who were criticizing her were right. She goes on and on about when they invited Max Lucado to, and people were saying, like, don't do this, you don't, and they did it anyway. And it was like she wasn't really, the whole LGBTQ plus community was begging her, don't do this. This is a man who equated homosexuality with bestiality, and they were saying don't give him a platform, and she admits she was that fell on deaf ears. She heard it, but she didn't really hear it. Like, she didn't really understand how deeply wounded people were by that. So
yeah. I liked how she went into depth about understanding differently. Like you're saying, she heard it, but she didn't. She privately, he said he changed his views, and that didn't come to the level of the hurt that it would have, and it did broadcast to people to see him endorsed in that. Yeah,
exactly. And it was only when she got. I don't know how many people wrote to her and rose up kind of against her, but she admitted, she kind of understood things theoretically, but she didn't
Right.
really understand,
Right.
like she said, the lived
Exactly.
experience of
Right.
this population. So,
And that's so hard when you have good intentions and you realize you've hurt people, to listen to that hurt, because you're
yeah.
like, I'm
She had a bunch of examples of that. I mean, it really sounds like she was kind of bumbling along for quite a while, you know, and it's brave of her to write about it, you know, because she doesn't make herself look great in a lot of these examples, you know. So
yeah. A couple more questions I had. There was a reference to the messy middle. So she does quote Brene Brown, who I do love. I haven't read any more new Brene Brown in the past 5 years or so, but I do love her. So in the letdown chapter, she talks about the messy middle, and how someone is describing it as let's see, who is it? Because I know I highlighted this. Scott Belsky, and I don't know him, but he says he goes through this process and it's a blur, the middle part. And he had to go back and look at screenshots and stuff as he was going through the middle to determine what he actually did in his process, because he couldn't remember any of it. He remembers the idea on the start, he remembers the success at the end, but like what happened in the middle exactly, I don't know. It was a big mess. Yeah. And so he had to go back to like screenshots and whatever to determine what he was going through. And it's funny because that made me laugh, because I do that too, but I never go back through them. They're too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, I almost feel like it's too painful to go back into the mindset of feeling so lost. And so it's only like you really needed to, like you were writing a book about your experience on something where you would have to do that.
Yes.
Do you ever see anything like that play out where you have, you know, a progression or like a journey or some project that you do, and the middle is just like, I have no idea how I got through that?
Well, for me, I kind of go back to my psychoanalytic studies, you know, to do something for 10 years. And there were some horrible parts in there, and some really scary parts, you know, and parts where I thought, I am so out of my comfort zone here, you know, especially when I was in the you know, working on a psych ward, where I thought, you know, who am I? I'm an English teacher. Who do I think I am? You know, and then to come out at the end of it, you know, 10 years later and have the degree and be a practicing analyst, you know, I mean, to look back at it, I'm just thinking like, what was I thinking? You know,
yeah.
You have to do that. You have to go through all of that, or else you can't practice. I mean, you have to work with, you know, the most serious of disabilities and illnesses. So, you know, I definitely felt like I was out of my comfort zone. So.
Yeah. I will tell you a secret, Pat, a confession. So I have a bag, like a reusable grocery bag, over by my kitchen table. It sits under the kitchen table. It's normally not noticed. And what I toss in there is all the sort of project workout stuff. So when I'm writing an outline or when I'm doing a to-do list, it's all the things. And it's like, it's so that if I ever like fall off a cliff and think I haven't done anything, I can go through that bag and be like, no, I did this. No, I struggled through this. But like I haven't ever looked at it in like 2 years.
I want to see what's in it. I want to see what's in the bag.
So like, I don't know, maybe it's for a rainy day. I don't know if it would be painful because some of those things haven't gone anywhere, or whether they would be rejuvenating because, you know, I did try, and that would be confirming. But it's like,
are these projects like the channel, or are these writing projects, or all?
Just like all the things. Yeah. Whether it's authoring, whether it's, you know, resilience in the community and trying to connect, whether it's channel efforts and like readathons or whatever. You know, I try something and it doesn't work out and I go, okay, well, we're not going to do that again. But what did I learn? I don't know.
I don't know. I'll think about it tomorrow. I'll think about it one of these days. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. I like the idea that it's all there somewhere, though, you know,
just in case.
You never know. I mean, you could revisit. That's
what a hoarder says, but let's go on.
Right.
All right. So I did want to catch up in the chat before we forget what the comments are about. So Jim says the most negative comments I get on my channel are that I don't get Master and Margarita. Jim, I had a very angry comment a few days ago about a book review. I just said, glad you liked it. Apparently I didn't understand it.
Wow.
Okay, so Jim gave Master and Margarita a meh review. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Elaine says, keyboard warriors is why I have a keyboard warrior journal. Oh, so instead of saying the comments, Elaine writes it down in a journal where she claps back.
I need to hear more about that, Elaine.
Yeah, you said you did talk about that in a recent live. I don't know if you could pin down which one, but it was a good discussion. Lynn says, I read Master and Margarita recently. It's quite satirical, uses magical realism. It isn't the more typical Russian heavy-handed prose, so not sure what people wanted him to get out of it. Yeah.
Sounds like he just didn't like it enough, and they said he obviously misunderstood it, you know?
Yeah, comment that he got said, one of the greatest novels ever written. The reason you gave 3 stars shows that you do not understand it or the political context of that time. You know what? You don't need to get a PhD in everything you read. So water under the bridge, right?
You're entitled to your opinion. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Any orator has to listen to the people they're speaking for. So I think that's Gareth responding to what we were talking about, Buddy, and the speaking.
Absolutely.
And stuff. Yeah.
I mean, she missed the mark on several occasions, like big time, you know?
Yeah. Eva says it's way easier to confront hate head on online, though. So Eva is a keyboard warrior of another variety.
Oh, yeah. Eva, I need your help. I'm so like, I become incapacitated when stuff like this happens, and it always happens on some social justice issue, you know, and it scares me, you know, I don't know. I need help with that.
Eva says a neighbor once in person started to tell me about her church family were protesting a read-along because a drag queen was set to host. And I did confront it head on, but it's much harder.
Wow. Sure. Wow. What a great example.
Do it, Margaret, for the bag of stuff.
The bag.
There. Yeah. No falling off cliffs. Hey, David. Welcome.
Hi, David. David has been doing some really brave things on his channel.
Oh, yeah?
With his poetry, his book about fascism. And he was reading poems every day that he was writing, and now has published a book. And there were people who were saying very threatening things to him also.
Yeah, yeah.
I missed Gareth.
And Gareth says, Pat knows that I've responded to some things I've not liked on Booktube by being subtle and not naming people. That's one way of doing it.
Yes. Gareth is very good at that. He gets his point across.
Mariann says, quite a few YouTubers like Chris Broad and Emma Thorne do videos where they read back through their hate comments. It's pretty funny. You can really call people out. I'm saving mine.
That's what I should do. I love it. I think that's what I'm going to do.
Wow. That's great.
Saving mine up in a folder. I love this.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
There you go.
Really? I mean, wouldn't that be great? That would help me turn it around instead of attacking myself, which is what I do. You know,
and that's the thing that they don't want, because a lot of people have pointed out that for Trump, the thing that he hates is feeling humiliated. And that's the only way we're pecking away at any of his gains, right? His authoritarian grabs of power. And so when people do like something like Taco or things that point out how utterly ridiculous he is and clearly transparent about grabbing for power and immunity for past crimes and all this stuff, it's like that's the successful way to attack back, I think. Eloise says the amount of people who think their own opinions are facts is mind-boggling. How offended they are when someone doesn't agree.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah, confronting things in person. Eva says I was a moment away from a panic attack. Yeah, it's hard. That's really hard.
Wow.
I wonder if it'll get easier after you've done it once, you know, because now you're like, okay, I know what happens. I know the cycle, and I'm like, I can gun myself, like get the adrenaline. I don't know.
Wow.
Mariann says a good comeback to crap comments is thanks for commenting and helping to boost this video so more people see it. Every little bit helps.
I like that too. That's great.
Yeah.
Come back and take a screenshot of that one.
Yeah.
That's great. Excellent.
Elaine says just a something lined paper, printed off angry emojis to decorate. Oh, there you go. So you can decorate it with stickers. This is her.
Her journal. Yes.
Yeah, journal. Grab when news and jerks bug me. Write it out, and bonus, I can shred it, and nothing's coming to haunt me years from now. There you go.
I really like that, Elaine. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine being targeted online feels more like how that felt for me in person. Yeah, because it feels like a gang and it feels like threatening energy. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Ellen says, yeah, definitely stressful to do in person when your physical safety could be put at risk. Yeah. So Emma Thorne is very good. Yeah, as in comments, that makes sense. And their physical safety too, maybe. She was very old. So yeah, I don't know. Are you saying something about you had a like physical response that might have frightened her? Or I don't know. Yes, Jim is pointing out South Park. Yeah, the humiliation bit and the calling out, for sure. All right. So
this is great.
Humor content only. Obviously, we're not threatening bodily harm.
No threats at all. There were no threats.
We do have reactions, and yeah, it's easy to get them out there. And gets hateful comments.
Really?
Got a hello. OG Bloodline. Nice to see ya. Louise says, I ask a lot of questions when confronting someone in person. What an odd thing to say. What led you to saying an inside thought out loud?
Yeah. I like that too. It's true. If you can turn it around, turn it into a question, that can help to prevent the self-attack.
Yeah. And I don't question people. I don't have a lot of interactions that produce that response, but I do see things and mutter to myself in public, which is probably not the best.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What led you to saying an inside thought out? I really like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I have one question left, which was in the perseverance chapter at the end that Buddy had. Here we go. Okay, sorry, I have to decipher my writing here. Life and blessings everywhere. Faithfulness. Oh, okay. So this is talking about faith, which is an interesting concept. So there's an anecdote that someone shares. Their grandmother, as a young girl, said, here, put the seed in some dirt, plant, and water it every day. And she watered it every day, and she was bored. And she said, do I have to? Do I keep doing it? And then, of course, plant magic. Something comes up. And she asks her grandmother about this. And the grandmother says, our grandfather, there's life and blessings everywhere. And she says, oh, so it just needs water. Cute 6-year-old. And he says, no, it just needs your faithfulness. So you just need to keep, adding to this dream and having faith in it.
Yes. Yeah. I love that too. I mean, she says perseverance is the hidden virtue of every courageous life.
Yes. So faith relies on trust. And what if trust is broken? So what are your thoughts about this whole conversation about we need faith in something in America, but our trust is broken between, groups of people. So how do we get past that? This came up yesterday too. It's like we have an ideal world that we carry inside our heart, and then we have the real world that we live in, and we act differently in both. So how do we bridge the gap? And I
know. I mean, that's really true. And I think that's a lot of what she's continuing to write about in her Substack, about hopelessness is not an option. Fear, you can't let fear win. I mean, those are a couple of her recent sort of titles. That's bless you. I'm paraphrasing. But I think that's the hardest thing, because I think we're all looking for something to hold on to. We're looking for something to feel hopeful about, and coming up short, and how do you not give in to despair when, we seem to be getting knocked down over and over again,
I have an answer. It's an answer. It's not the answer, but it's one that I'm working on with the watering my little plant.
Yeah.
And it's the trust links, right? So maybe you've heard the phrase, the weak links are what gets you the job. So you have strong links with the people that you're very connected with every day. You see them, you trust them, you know, interact with them often. And then you have weak links, which are like friends of friends. And that's how you get to a different community. So you have your strong community that's small or however big. And then you have the greater like connections that are 1 degree away. And access is a different community that you don't know. So the link, if you trust it, like if you can build a small bridge one at a time, that's what I'm trying to do in real life. And it's slow and hard, but like the forging of new connections to trust a few more people, and then a few more people, and then a few more people, and then get acclimated and then get comfortable. I think is how I'm building resilience for myself, but so slow.
It's very admirable, though. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, this whole series that you're doing is you know, this is an awesome achievement. You know, there's, well, it's true. I mean, you know, I read, you know, I'm talking about one book. I mean, how many people are you talking with this summer? I mean, it's
16. So I was trying for every weekday, and then I had a couple drop and move. So 16, and almost every book I read.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And who is helping me in my resilience group project is coming on Monday. So this is a booktuber who lives in the same town. So I've gotten to hang out with and become friends with. It's Leo at PDX Leo.
Oh, wonderful.
What's really cool is the bonus that I put in. At the very end of your book, there's a reference in the ending chapter to the book for Monday, which is just a coincidence. I don't know if you've heard of this one or like, you know, clocks to mention, but All We Can Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis
Wonderful.
Is Leo's book for Monday. So I hope you all come back. That one's at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So very excited.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's been doing the work of like community building. He's in a church, but has stepped back from some of his responsibilities, but is definitely still doing community building work and activism work. So really awesome person. And I hope people come. He had a Booktube channel, and he hasn't posted much because life's been crazy for all the reasons you would expect. But yeah. Let's see. So Eva says, I don't remember the moment too clear, to be honest. I really was close to panic. But my husband says, I said things like, I love drag queens and I'm not the one. And then the topic was dropped when I walked away.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm glad we came through it and can tell us about it.
Yeah, really.
And Eva says, y'all can send me a message with a link anytime you see someone in the community or yourself being bullied in comments. Yeah, there are more of us. Yes. Gareth says, faith can't work without a solid, hopeful, but real assessment of the real world. Okay, so he's commenting about my bridging the gap between the worlds. Sometimes religious faith buries its head in the sand. Yeah.
I was interesting because I got a notice in the Substack for Bishop Budde yesterday, and she was including the letter that, you know, a bunch of people have written for, you know, about what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. And, you know, many of them were faith leaders in and around the city, but it was also interesting who wasn't on there. You know, it certainly was not everyone, and it was not every church. It was not every religious group. So that was troubling to me, you know, but there could be another letter out there. But this, you know, it was just interesting to me who was there and who wasn't. So.
And I don't know the space well enough to know who wasn't, but that is a good point.
Yeah. Well, I just think some don't want to confront what's happening. I mean, they know it's the right thing to do, but you know, they're putting their heads in the sand, as Gareth said. So.
Yeah. I was watching some of the video footage, which I don't think is being covered the way it should be, just like LA's protests weren't. Right. But yeah, just masses of law enforcement officials from all rainbow colored of different agencies outfitted with tactical gear and roaming the streets at night. And it's just like, how can you feel safe when you've got like a police state happening? And DC is so ill-equipped because it's, you know, a district that doesn't have its own real like representation. And I just feel so bad. Like I used to live there for about a decade. So
did you? Oh, wow.
Happening there, I have some knowledge, but obviously not current. And yeah, it's hard to take. Eva says, sometimes I think about when I was young and the adults would say things like, oh, to have your energy. And now as an adult, I get it. I think those who stay closed-minded, they are like the version of me hearing those words and just thinking, ugh, not this line again.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's a very, what would I say? I don't want to say American. I don't want to say accepted. But in a lot of the issues where people are not meeting the moment, to use Kamala's phrase, many people's phrase, it's because they can't admit it. And so they're just in the denial period. And I realize this about myself in some ways, and I realize it about large swaths of the population. A lot of it is denial. And it's not just people who are older, and it's not just people who are in churches. It's just like a lot of people who can't take the realization that shit's gonna go down, you know, like they don't have a plan. They don't know what to do. And so it's easier to just not believe it and craft a whole other world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it can be tempting to do that too, because it's so horrible, you know, like, you know, I get it.
Yeah. Elaine says, love you. You have someone in person close by. I know. Love meeting booktubers in person. They're the greatest. Yeah. The covered faces are scary for sure.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah. And the older you get, the more you have to lose. But there's also an opposite principle working, which is that the older you get, the fewer fucks you have to give to be eloquent of the hour. But yeah, both exist. It's easier to be in denial. Yeah. Oh, okay. One of the reasons why the elite have such an issue with people not having babies. Childless people have more time, energy, resources, and less fear for their children to protest. That's a good point. And then Elaine says some are in shock and have no tools to cope. Yeah. Which is why we want small local connections to enable capacity building. It's interesting to see this, like all this old knowledge I had from international development sort of come back and be like, oh, this could be useful and this could be useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man, Eva says, my son has done shooter drills since kindergarten. A protest isn't any more risky than public school, I think.
Absolutely. You know, when I think of how my career changed over 40 years, you know, I mean, we were not always doing shooter drills, and then suddenly we were, you know, you had to, I can't tell you how many different kinds of drills we would have to accomplish every year. Really horrifying.
Yeah. So we had some questions to the poll that I put up. So I'll just pop these up and we can close out a little over time. I hope that's okay. Elaine says, my grandmother. So the question was, sorry, let me repeat the question first. It was, is there someone who serves as a role model when it comes to making your own tough, brave decisions? So I was just envisioning, like, is there, like, when you have that moment where you're like, do I do this? And do I commit? And then you think, okay, Eleanor Roosevelt, like, I can do it if she did it this way, kind of thing. So Elaine says, yeah, my grandmother, bravest and strongest woman I've ever met.
Same for me.
Yeah. Dara says, a lot of songwriter heroes of mine are inspirations. That's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, and this was just a lovely comment I wanted to highlight. Again, Lynn said, it's okay to need people and community. That's truly the humane in humanity. So I started. Yeah. Yeah. Hard to believe images on the news are from the United States.
Yes, exactly.
Eva says our nation is too big for its britches, for sure. Yeah. I think this is Julie's quote of the day. Oh no, maybe her father is the role model. My father always said, "You make a decision and don't look back." This helped me to not ruminate and second guess. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
David says, ominous premonitions overheard among Black TikTokers. Someone said you have to stay prepared so you don't have to get prepared. That's exhausting. No one, right? Yeah. Hey, it's Pat.
Hello, Miguel.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, good discussion. Good answers. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. That's great. So I'm just going to say I will be sending out next week's emails and questions, and then the streams will pop up for everyone. So be sure to tune in. You can check the calendar, which I've put in the description to see who's coming up. But Leo is on Monday. Great. Got my calendar here, which I colored in for myself. Grace from Books and Cooks is on Tuesday with How to Resist Amazon and Why.
Oh, wow.
Gareth will be on at some point next week. We're not sure when. And then Friday, the 22nd, is Mariann with Emergency Sex. And because of technical issues, we did it pre-recorded. So it'll be a premiere, and then we'll be in the chat to answer questions. So that should be fun, fun, fun. Woo!
Very good. Well, this was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I so much appreciate your time, Pat, and working with me. I know I made this a long process for everyone so that I could pace myself and do all the things that I wanted.
It was great. It was a great process. I was really happy to be asked and really, really proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
And a great book choice. Great book choice. So head to the description if you want to purchase the book, because I got a link for that too. So thanks, everyone. Happy reading. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And if you're heading out to protest this weekend, bring a buddy and be safe.
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.